of when we got into it, after the Devil's Cup in 2003, there was a couple of heartbreaking losses, sprinkled in there between then and 2012. A lot of years.
Doug Sarava.
Doug, Joe and Doug. Awesome. My name's Daniel.
All right, we are live on the Doug Saravo Show. We got Judy, Pete, the author of The Power of Love, Carolyn, and Jim.
Only Jim.
So how's everyone doing today?
Awesome.
Doing
Great.
fine. We had a
Doing
great
great.
meal.
Yeah.
All right,
Another
first,
day in paradise.
my first question is for Carolyn. With the power of love, how do we move forward in the world?
Tap into the energy. Keep your eye on the prize. One day at a time.
One day at a time. All right, Carolyn, cool. Jim?
The power of love to me, it's infinite. It's in all states of mind. It's something that pertains to the universe, to our country, to the state, to the family, and to your soul. It all comes together as one. That's how I see love.
Judy?
Well, I see love as being very, very powerful. And again, as Jim said too, it comes in many forms. And I think we have to really get back to a little basic. It does involve religion, and of course not everyone is on board with religion. And I think in a way that's where we've lost love. People have to remember, do unto others as you would have done to you. Would you like someone speaking nasty to you? No. So when you speak to someone, whether you like them or not, you speak to them as a human being. That's love. It might not be love for that person, but it's showing compassion. It's showing a love for humanity. And I think that people have to start thinking that way. And I think that with social media and, family units not being together as they used to be, I think that's a little getting lost. So we need to bring more love back.
The power of love. Pete?
What is love? What is it really? Is it a feeling? Is it a passion? Is it something that strikes you? Is it a chord? Is it biological, physiological, anatomical, spiritual, emotional? Is it all of the above? What is it?
All of it.
What is it? What does it really entail? What does it really come from? What does it really mean in the long run? Everyone wants to be loved, but what does that really mean to you? What do they want? What do they really want from love? What does it really give you that you have to be, that you feel that it's so important to you? Is it something that's a constant respect, a trust in somebody, a belief by something? Is it a support? Is it knowing that you want? It's something that gives you the strength to go on. What does it do? What does it really come from? How do you actually get it? Why do some people feel they have it and many of you don't feel they've been loved enough or didn't have any at all? It's a tough. It's really, you have to define it for where you want it to be for your own life and how it's going to be. Love is what is the mother of what leads to success, trust, respect, and money and any other things you want to your own life. So where do you go from there? How do you get it? Where do you start?
Carolyn, would you like to add anything to that?
Oh, that's a mouthful. That's beautiful. It's Pete, you make it sound how important it really is. It's all encompassing, isn't it? Very important.
Jim?
Yeah, well, the Greeks had 3 forms of it, which I don't remember, but
Fidelity,
fidelity.
right?
It was-
I want to say
I don't
eros,
remember.
but I don't know if that's
I
Greek.
just don't have the memory for all that. It's
It's like brotherly love. It's motherly, it's family love. It's amore. It's amorous love. And I'm not sure about the other one, but I think there's also agape, which is God's love, which is infinite love, which many of us fall very short of. But agape,
Well,
fidelity.
to be
amore.
present, I would think,
Thank
to take love in a very present meaning. It's of the moment, I would think, because as a friend of mine that passed away last week, I think of the past. I haven't seen her in 10 years, 12 years. I met her at a store once for 15 minutes and we spoke, and then we parted. We graduated together at grammar school from 8th grade, and I didn't know she was suffering from cancer for 4 years. So I'm thinking to myself, wow, I never heard, I didn't know, and so I really want to spend some respect and love to the family and to her passing. So I went to the wake and the funeral and met her family, and so time passes on, and that was a moment that I could share some love with all the family and friends, and that's a stage of sorrowful love, but there's a lot of joy in love, things that we can find on a brighter side when someone that we know gets married, a daughter or a son, and you go to their wedding and you see the birth of a new family occurring, and that's a new brighter side of love. So we open the book and we close the book with love, and it just goes on for infinity. Infinity is endless, and it's all how you want to characterize what your presence with love is. It can be in a negative light, but,
No, I don't know.
Well, I just gave you some example. What do you see it as?
Oh, you mean sadness and love.
Sadness
But
is
I don't think
negative.
that's
It's-
not love. But I don't think that's a negative love.
Well, it's
That's not a negative love. I mean,
Well,
because you
yeah.
have compassion. I mean, I think
Right.
it's all encompassing. Like all the things that Pete mentioned. That's what it's everything. It's emotional.
Exactly.
It's the way you're raised. It's your parents. Like if your parents are good people, I believe you come out being a good person. I think it's a little genetics. I think it's a little, your environment, the way you're raised. You can have maybe not a good home life, but if you go to school or you have friends that are loving and compassionate, you can learn from that. It's a learned
Correct. It's a
experience. It's an innate experience. It's something that you have within you. If you don't love yourself, you're not going to love anyone else.
Correct.
And sometimes I believe that we're all born with a blank slate, and it's part of it is our environment that forms how we grow. So you might have been born with love, but your environment can crush that if you come from a home that's not good. But if you're that strong-willed person that doesn't want to have that life as a vicious cycle, if you're strong enough, you can overcome that lack of love, and you can say, I don't want to be that way. I don't want to have the rest of my life being the way my parents raised me, or
Of
the way
that
my home
negative
life was,
style.
that negative style of
Right.
love, that negative attention,
I
whatever
was
you want to call it.
implying
But but even though somewhere in that bad that negative maybe household or upbringing, there still is a little bit of a love. A mother and a father
absolutely.
still have a love for that human being most of the time. And there have been children who've been abused, but they'll go back to their mother in a heartbeat, and that mother will want them back. How many times they want to be put in foster care and the mother wants to keep them. They're fighting to keep them, even though they're abusive, because there is some form of love there,
A
because it's
conscience.
part of them.
it's a conscience.
It's a conscience, maybe, and maybe it's a
Right.
realization that, hey, this kid is a
Right.
part of me. So there's
The chemistry
always a
there.
right. There's always a little bit of love. I think even in the worst case scenario, there's some kind of something, but that love can come to fruition and grow through other people and other things that occur in that person's life. It doesn't have to be. I don't think love is ever that negative.
Well, where there is a negative, I find there is a positive. So I was trying to exemplify is the death versus the wedding. It's the beginning and the end form of positive and negative, because the two fields, without those two fields, nothing would be here. And that we have families, I think it was in Detroit or Wisconsin, it was two parents that bought a gun for their son. And they knew he was a little off.
Oh yeah. I know that story.
And he shared a few bullets with the students in school. They didn't make it.
That was very sad. That was
And
very,
the
very
parents
sad.
ran away from it, knowing they gave him the gun.
Right.
And then you have the Sandy Hook, another one. She had love for her son. Here's a nice gun, son.
Right. Well, sometimes
know?
people think that part of love are things, material things. I love my kid. Here's $20. Go do whatever you want with it, because then that kid is going to love me more. No, it's what you teach the kid. It's not just material things that are going to make them love you. It's sitting with them maybe and reading a storybook when they're little. Maybe it's when they're a little bit older, saying, "Hey, let's go to a movie together." It's having respect for one another. As the kids grow older, sometimes the relationship becomes a little more confrontational. So you're not really friends with your kids, but you have to have that give and take respect, so there's not that confrontation, that love continues to grow. Even in a relationship with my daughter, I have a great relationship with her, and I've always respected her opinion. Okay, well, what do you want to do? Oh, you want to do that? Well, I don't think that's a good idea because, and I will give her the reasons why. So think about it for a minute. I have respect for her opinion, and then in turn, she comes around to have respect for my opinion, or my advice and my direction. Because you have to give them a chance to grow. When they become teenagers, they wanna take control of their lives. They want to take control. They think they're old enough. They understand. When, of course, you're the older person, you're wise enough that you know that they don't really get all about life. But you have to talk to them about it. You have to explain to them why. My mother used to say, talk to your kids. And she's right. Talk to them. Tell them why. Explain to them. So this way they understand. And
What do you do with the unruly kid that doesn't want to understand? That doesn't really want to do anything you want them to do.
That's
you
a
think
little.
that they should do.
That's a little tough, and it depends on the situation. What kind of relationship has there been? Has that unruly kid gotten away with everything all their lives? Have they always dictated what went on in the house? Were they the ones who always said, "No, I want this, and this is what we're going to do"? All right, that's what we'll do. Was that the relationship? Are you belittling that kid for every little thing that they say? What is the relationship? What is the love there? What is the connection? Do you have a connection there? sometimes with unruly kids, it's because, hey, their whole life they've gotten away with whatever they wanted. You know, and yes, sometimes there is that one kid in a family that, you know, what are you going to do with them? But I think to keep on them and just keep talking to them and keep redirecting to something that they can get involved in that's
Absolutely.
beneficial and good.
Active
That's-
minds.
yes,
You're talking
yes,
about keeping
yes.
the mind active and not
Yes.
sedentary where they become introverted.
Right, because
You're unable to function as a normal child.
exactly. You know, idle mind is the devil's workshop. You know, keep them busy, keep them active. You know, it depends on the dynamic of the relationship to control that unruliness.
Peter, how do you see?
Love is really, it's a deep affection for something that goes beyond an agreement to a person or a thing or anything else on not just a biological level, but on an emotional, a spiritual level as well. It's an agreement that goes beyond what papers were signed and what words were spoken, and it's something that's connected for it. It's a passion that you want to have for something. I mean, that you find that you truly feel that likes and is something that connects to you in your own life or the people around you. As the older I get, the more I realize the less I really know.
That's right.
Because love is just a word. It really is a word for the meaning that you give it and what you connected it or you associate it with. In a case of your child or your daughter and things like that, when you have an unruly kid is usually one that lacks focus for it. The first thing you always say to them when you ask a question is I've noticed you do this, that, and the other thing in this situation. Why do you do that? And you say, and I don't know, just is, or maybe I do this is not an answer. You did it with a method and a motive because you had a love to want to do what you did. And you can't tell me you didn't want to do it or it wasn't something you needed to do. And if it was, spell it out for me because I can only understand to a level. I'm intelligent, not telepathic. But I have a love for you that I want to see. Hey, you go to the next level that I never got to. I want something. And as far as the kids that were given guns to, all of the evidence points that all of these kids were on or coming off some sort of either antidepressant medication or drugs with it. As I always tell people, for guns don't kill people, it's husbands who come home early.
Well,
Anyway, but I mean, where I go to the point is that it's just a tool that's being used for something, either protection of yourself, your family, your property, your Second Amendment right, or if you live in a more rural place or someone that's more primitive, you'd use that for hunting of food, protection of property, protecting yourself against criminals because even the police will not be able to protect you for you. It's a love and love is to me is something that builds the foundation that gives you hope and a motive to want to get out and do what to make yourself and other people around you better individuals. It's something that you wanted to explore the meaning of, and the more questions you answer, the more open up and you want to go and find out more.
it's a development stage.
Pete, your words, really hit home largely with me. Do you think that if the young adults or the youngsters who committed mass murders, do you think that they did that because they didn't have love? And how does someone with love
Or
do
connect.
something like that?
It'd have to be on some sort of biological level, or it could be something that was well hidden from the public at all. I mean, it's been proven for years. Many a person that didn't even have a problem had something just pop out of nowhere because they were beaten up, sexually molested, or they had an accident, or they had a traumatic experience. Just look at the people coming home from the war on terror or any war in time, that from shell shock, post-traumatic stress disorder, or maybe they had an injury that killed, like the one that just killed Bob Saget recently, or many of the football players who had chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is not even able to see on an MRI, but only through an autopsy from the protein buildups that go up around it. Or it could just be something that was raised within a household or an environment that they saw and they they didn't want to be part of, or they didn't have anything to compare or contrast with it or go outside of it. Cults have been known to do this for generations over. It's always built on the same thing: hidden agendas, deceit, financial and sexual exploitation, and always a nonstop adulation and omniscience of the leader of the cult or the people that work within it, over disciplinarian of even the most smaller things. Life comes in a balance, as best I know how to live it, and where that is completely subjective as far as I know. There's a general rule for everybody, yet at everything, I mean, one size doesn't fit all. You can't paint every canvas with the same brush and the same colors.
Right. You know, something came up for me when you were speaking of this, and there was a study in, I believe it was Portugal, and it was regarding addicts, and they did a program, and I'm sorry I can't give you specifics, but you could probably research this. They did a program where they took addicts, mostly young adults, and put this in this program where basically people cared for this person, gave them jobs, put them into families, put them as part of the community, and really basically gave time to this individual and let them know that they were worthy. And the success rate of this particular program was off the charts as a result of, you know, what they were doing. So they made it a community effort, and that, you know, that everyone was involved in this. So in a sense, it's when you give someone your time and your talent and your treasure, so to speak, you're giving them some type of love, and
it's a support. One of the old anti-abortion commercials used to be, "Life, what a beautiful choice." Yet the life they showed you, everybody in that, if you look at the background closely enough, lives in a well-clothed, well-fed, well-housed, well-supported community, well-supported household, well-stimulated school. It's the ideal that they have. If everybody could have that, who would consider an abortion or a crime or be violent to your own neighbor in that regard? In that same way, I mean, it goes back to a study I read about when I was all the way back in college, about the intelligence test they gave in Indiana in 1967, where they said this is the most highly advanced test there was. They had all the teachers taken. They said, out of the 30 kids in class, these are your 10 most intelligent. These are the kids that have potential but haven't reached it. These are, well, last them lots of luck to them. They came back at the end of the term. The highly intelligent kids were in one section, the middle kids were in the other, and the other ones were in the other. Problem was, the test was a fake. The test was designed to see what would there be the reaction by the teachers and everybody around them if they felt this person was this smart, this dumb, or this way or that way. And it became exactly that. And this has been duplicated all around the world in every environment, in education, business, sports teams, anything you want to think of. You treat people like human beings, they act like human beings. You treat them like they're smart, they'll act smart. You treat them like they're animals and they're dumb, they'll act like dumb animals.
Yeah, monkey, yeah.
Yeah, well, that really goes back to saying, do unto others as you'd have to. Would you like somebody to treat you like a dummy? No. You want to be spoken to like an individual, like a human being.
Right. You want to be held.
You want to be given a chance in life. Everybody deserves a fair chance.
One of the biblical stories is based on in the Garden of Eden that Adam and Eve were given two trees to go to: the tree of love or the tree of knowledge. Eve coaxed Adam into eating from the tree of knowledge. It's because that comes back to you. What do you want? Do you want knowledge and omniscience that you could be the next? You can be God and you know all of the meaning of the universe, or would you rather be loved and be something for that first? If you have that, do you really? If you have a story of the case that goes with this, do you want? If you have love, success, or money to pick from, which one do you take? Love would always lead the way in because it's your passion of what you deeply affection and you have the greatest interest in the greatest too. All stories of the greatest success minds found what they loved in life by no later than they were a mid-teenager.
They found their gifts from the great being.
Let's be honest, it's a lot easier to love something you have a knack or you have a gift for than it is for something you have to work and struggle in an uphill battle for.
Well, if it's not a battle, it's
Well, if you have a
But it's not
passion
that
for
kind
it,
of
but
battle.
if you have a passion for it, I
the
think,
thing is,
you know,
it is a compassion. You know, when you sense what you have, you go for it. And I
You
think
believe that's
what
your
love
calling
is.
and your destiny.
But there are people who do it just because their father tells them to do it, or the school system tells them they have the aptitude to do this.
That's funny you should say
Yeah.
that. When
You're
they
living
did
in somebody else's life.
right, that's what actually
It's
the
not
movie.
your life.
Or maybe
If you
yeah,
if you ever saw the movie The Dead Poets Society with Robin Williams,
I've heard of it.
that was actually
Yeah.
based the character he took because that was based on his life. He wanted to be an actor rather than follow his father into the auto industry as an executive, and rather than take an attitude like the other father did that demanded he become a doctor and live a life that he didn't want, and the kid took his own life. His father sat him down and said, "Okay, I want you to pursue your passion. Your grades have to stay up. You have to be what you want in your own. You be what you want in your own life, but you have to meet me halfway, and you have to at least have a fallback plan in case what your passion doesn't pan out to what you want it to be. You can be everything you want, and I'll support you all the way to the end. And if you make it that way, I'm so glad you did. If you don't, okay, I'm glad we were at least prepared for that too." And picture his life if his father said no, and how much beauty the world would have lost from this man, and who died at 63 years, if not decades, too young, and brought the man because he had that kind of voice, took it to troops around the world. He went to he raised money for homeless shelters for years. He built friendships. He was able to build acting camps. There's literally nothing he couldn't do because of that.
Built societies.
Right.
You're talking about Robin Williams?
Yes.
And it was after his life?
Right.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Pat,
It was brilliant.
love is the
My
connection
go-to
is the connection that you feel on a level that gives you that sense of the universe is really in balance. This is what it was. I was really here for. This
it
is
makes you happy.
it. Happiness
Makes
is
you
happiness is just one, but a real feeling of peace and contentment is what I was going for, because
Okay.
Contentment is what you need.
you know for a fact that there's a sense
Well, being
inside of you when
happy, being content.
all other is crumbling around. There's something else that'll come out of that's better than what was there when you're gone from this world. When you're gone, that love stayed behind and it spread to the rest of the world. Well, like when Johnny Appleseed came, you spread a feed seeds down. It doesn't look like much at first, but when the time passes and you look back on it someday, hey, the fruit and the trees that feed hundreds, if not thousands, are there behind.
What a beautiful analogy.
All right, so Carolyn, I want to get to you. They say that God is love. So why does this world lack God, the Ten Commandments, and having faith?
You know, a friend of mine gave me a book recently. I haven't read it yet, but it's about how this is the least sort of barbaric era of humanity ever. Of course, I don't believe him, but that's why he sent me the book. that it is the least. Yeah, so God is love. It didn't say that, you know, that God's not a jailer in a sense, that he puts you in jail and says, "You believe what I tell you," or it's there's that little matter of free will that comes up that you have to understand. You know, when I read the Bible, I remember it says, in not too many places does it say this, but where it says God is, you know, everybody knows. You know, he says, "I am what I am," or something. But God is love is one of them. God is power is another one, and God is might is another one. You have to figure out what he meant by power and might. But love is a little bit easier to contend with. Especially with Corinthians 13. You know, it's commitment. It's really being there when you don't want to be there, and sometimes sweeping things under the rug when you really don't want to. And I think it's a lot of things that you do that you don't really want to do, but you're committed and you're looking at the right thing to do. So I'm sorry, what was your question? Why isn't the world
Why does
there?
the world lack that?
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. You're talking about a more religious nature. And sometimes we confuse love with infatuation or lust or desire or hunger or all these things. But it comes, and it's all of those things put together. But it's also, you know, it's not only mind, body, it's also soul and emotion. It's interesting. If you look at the world's religion, they all have the golden rule. All the great religions have the same golden rule, that you treat others the way, you know, you would want to be treated. In fact, there was a Muslim fellow named Al-Khazali that said, you've heard about, you know, treat others equally as you would want to be treated. Well, he said, treat others better than you want to be treated. What a beautiful world that would be. So we each have that particular golden rule, but not, you know, some have an intellectual focus. Some, I think Christians have a more loving focus, especially since we learned more that, you know, Jesus is our brother as opposed to God is our strict father. There's a sort of a transition there after a while. You know, Buddha says, why suffer? It's not about God at all. It's about suffering, and if you don't desire, you will not suffer, and kind of accepting the present moment. I have, in my life, have been fortunate to have had all these great traditions come together. What I'm a little perturbed about is that we didn't get a lot of philosophy in our lives that maybe, you know, our ancestors probably would have had a little bit more of. They would have read in Greek or in Latin. They would have read all of the great philosophers, Plato and Socrates, and going down the line, maybe in their original languages. So there's a lot of wisdom out there, I think, that there's so much out there grabbing for our attention that just 100 years ago, they didn't have TV, radio, cars, internet, all these attention grabbers. They either read or maybe they listened to others orate. There's an oratory. Those are where people, like, we can listen to Pete, probably.
I don't see why. I don't have that much smart.
Endlessly, yeah, no, it's...
No, you're the slowest.
So they studied the philosophers and they studied the Greek
That
gods,
sums it up
and
for
they
me.
learned from them.
You're always asleep. I'm going to call you sleepy,
Who's
but it's not
asleep?
going to be Joe.
Anyway, so I
Sorry,
think that well, the question that you had was why the world is not,
Why is the world lacking it?
why the world what?
Not
Not,
Why is the world lacking faith?
lacking
Love.
faith, hope.
I think it is.
I
don't
think they have it.
I think they have it, yes.
You know, as I said, hope, faith, and the will to live comes from the dinosaurs. I mean, do you think a dinosaur would want to be eaten by a tyrannosaurus or, you know, one of those dragons? I mean, everybody wants to live. You know, you throw a cat and a dog or in the water. I mean, they want to come back out,
There's
right? I mean,
there's
it's
an
normal
innate-
function.
There's
Innate,
an innate will to live, yeah.
right? It's a spiritual thing that's biologically in all living the biosystem. It's just there. A flower, you hurt it, and a flower would want to come back up. It's struggling. You bend it or something, you know, it wants to come back up and grow again. It's just the nature of life to have that hope, faith, and will.
Right, but keep in mind, your senses and your own brainstem are the only ones that integrate the reality around you, which could be a lot or a very little at any one time. Faith is based on something that you have to have a certain amount of, that for what you can't see or touch or taste or smell, or get on your eyes and fingertips. It's something you have to go beyond you. Hope is the best of things and the worst of things in people for all the same reason, for exactly the same definition. It makes you have faith and belief. You have to continue on in a journey when logic, reason, common sense, and all of your senses would have told you to quit a long time ago.
And will.
And might, and if it does, you'd never know if you could have stepped on. You never can be completely convinced that maybe the next time it would have been better, or maybe the one after that it was better.
And it all
Love,
comes-
love, on the other hand, is based on exactly that. It's a passion of a want, and not just a want and desire, but of the contentment of actually reaching what you've done. It's a sense
Right,
of,
right.
of relief, as well as a sense of happiness at the same time, because you've crossed a milestone. You've reached that point where you've integrated to the next level. You know this is where you're supposed to be.
Right.
This is where something, and the way what's balanced for your own life, and it gets you to that
And that's
sense
all-
on a physical and an emotional sense,
Right.
as well as spiritual.
And it all stems from
Like-
survival,
Like being in the zone.
to survive.
Correct.
We're all here. I mean, we haven't lived 1,000 years ago. We only lived in this modern age. We have no idea. We can dream back at what it's like.
We can go back
Watch
1,000.
movie.
I mean,
like-
consider, we wouldn't have much of a trail to go back with it. If you took together all the paper there was for all of the entire Roman Empire, you couldn't even fill in 2 Encyclopedia Britannica books in order to do so. How
That was a crazy thing.
that the base of Buddha, Christ, or Muhammad, their whole lives were less than 30 to 40 years old, and then in a period 2,000 years ago, at a time where there were no paved roads, and when Jesus went to Israel for the census when he was 12, it took his family 3 days to go 100 miles. So you not only have to see it through the lens of what we know, you have to stop taking through the lens of today's modern world and cut and pasting it over yesterday's history. There's always so many other factors in play that go with it that you can almost lose count.
It's a thread. It's like a thread. And
Correct.
It weaves the story, and where humanity is only maybe 15,000 years, maybe. I don't know. We don't really know.
100.
But I mean, life has been growing for billions of years, but civilization has, as far as we know.
5,000, maybe 10 tops.
Well, I think, I think the Chinese are like over 13, but, and they're discovering other sources that might be even longer. Doesn't matter. Could be 100,000 years old.
Mm-hmm.
How do we come to grips with our own humanity and say, we don't need to kill each other. Why can't we love each other? Why
Yes,
can't we
love
work
it.
together?
And
Power of love.
That's-
The power of love.
The power of
Doug's
love.
got it.
I think.
Well, that's the other thing. You have to look at it from what's the word power mean.
Jimi Hendrix said.
Oh, I could say enthusiasm.
But there's-
Enthusiasm is a state of the mind that gets you to generate yourself.
But there's
It's a
also
generator.
there's other powers that go with that. There's power of control. There's power over others. There's power
That's a state. That's an option.
Well, maybe the power part comes into looking actually what is power, and we go back to electricity, and we go back to the positive and negative ions in our own system. Maybe that's the power that we have to be looking at.
Then we
how
can
that
also
works.
say that is it nothing more than just a group of cells and atoms and ions and hormones that have all interacted together that cause
Very
certain
possible.
interreactions in the human body? Is it all just one thing
I've seen
that's
those
requires is that one thing over the other turns a person into one thing with it?
It's-
What I've been saying lately is that it's not your body and it's not your mind.
Mhm.
You are only a thought in space and time.
Life is but a vapor, according to the Bible.
And that's what we're wandering
Life is but a
thoughts.
dream,
We're collective wandering thoughts. And we just.
So what does that mean in time? We were just a cosmic accident that just evolved with a brainstem over millions, maybe billions of years.
Well, my interpretation is
Accident.
I always said that for many years,
No,
God is
no.
time, and time is existence.
We have to stop looking at time as
Okay.
though as linear going about. It's like a fluid ocean that continuously moves.
Well, existing is
Maybe.
solids, liquids, gases, and space. And if you remove time, do you have any of those?
I don't know. To me, God is power.
That I call it the great being, the
The power
supreme
is
being.
love.
The power
I
is
pray to the
love.
supreme being.
All right, so I have a
Yeah.
quick question for Judy.
Judy, your turn.
So you mentioned
I'm lost here. I'm like,
So you-
what's the question about God?
earlier. You
Well,
you mentioned about learning.
philosophy.
Learning.
So
yes.
how important is it to teach the younger generation about values, beliefs, and morals?
It's very important, and I think that we have lost that along the way. And I think part of that is because there is no form of religion. I believe that religion gives morals and values and teaches you a way of life. And among all religions, I think that we all have the same common ground: to lead a good life, to be good to other people, to love other people, to help other people, to find the happiness in life. And I think along the way we have lost that. Kids come to, in the Catholic religion, they come to religious education, and a lot of times once their sacraments are completed,
Confirmation.
by confirmation, they don't, mommy and daddy don't take them to church anymore. It's like, let's let them go because it's tradition, rather than journeying with their children to see where the religion can take them and show them the Ten Commandments and living, by those practices. We have become a country that we're so fortunate that we're not thankful anymore for what we have. We don't care. It's no big deal to have an abortion anymore. You don't value life anymore. Because things come so easy. We don't value marriage anymore because divorce is so easy. We don't compromise with our partner. So, all right, let's get divorced. I don't
Modern medicine and technology makes things readily too accessible that
Yes.
generations
Yes.
ago.
Yes.
So can you? But
So the kids
but then
can
we can open
find
up
things-
we can open up the other door on the other side of history and ask, was the marriage was marriage based on love, or was it based on necessity?
Well, today, in today's society, we have options. It's not like years ago where marriages were arranged, or other religions where the marriage is arranged. In this country, we have freedom of choice. We have dating. You don't have to get married to someone you don't like. You don't have to. It's a matter of really paying attention when you're dating to who you're dating, and making sure that you talk about the issues that will.
It's only been 100 years since.
You need a little bit of open. You can stick to your values and be conservative and move, move in a slower direction. But you have to leave the door open enough to move. You have to have something. And every great document in history is written with enough open-endedness so that the interpretation can be done, and the evolution of it, presuming it's not corrupted, can be moved in the right way and with the right philosophy. The right thing never changes. It's just people's perspective of it.
That's a huge statement.
Well,
We
it's
hope
progress.
that
As
the
society
laws-
changes, so does everything. Everything changes as society evolves.
I know.
As we evolve, as society evolves, everything changes.
It's one
Everything.
Big, one big wave.
Right, right. I mean, we've evolved from the Neanderthal man. Here we are today. We speak a language.
We get
We have
hairstyles.
communicated. Right. That's right, Jim. Those bomb hairstyles. Yes.
And new pants, shoes that actually work.
Yeah, right.
You know?
So it's
No
the
wraps.
earth has evolved, right? It continues evolving. The earth changes everything changes.
So
So our perspective of the Catholic Church also changes. You know.
I do have a question for Judy. So I bring up doing what you love. Are you happy being a hairstylist, and can you see yourself doing that for the rest of your life? And no matter what you go through in life, that you'll be happy doing it.
Yes, I love it. I love it. It's fun. It's fun. It's so different than what I was doing, and makes people feel good. You know, when people get a good haircut, they get a good blowout. It's so satisfying. Like, it's really satisfying. You know, they're happy. You're happy because you look what I did. You know, I made this person happy.
Plus, you get a good review.
You know. Well, yeah, you know, they go on Yelp or Google.
You turn
I love that hairstylist.
You turn something negative into something positive.
Right. You know, like the girl today, she walked in, she had long hair. She's like, yeah, I haven't washed it a couple of days. It was all knotted up in this ponytail and all that. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh boy, you know, challenge, you know? So now, right, exactly. I wanted to shop, and her hair was textured, so, you know, she had this nice wave to it and all that. And the color wasn't that great, but, you know, oh well, her highlights were growing out, and she was dark, so they were like a little bit on the orangey side, because when they grow out, that's what happens when you have dark hair, you know. But anyway, she just, yes, they get brassy, but she was a cute young girl, you know. So I'm like, okay, what do you want to do? So we have a conversation. So again, you know, it's like a conversation with someone. Then, you know, you take them back, you give them a nice shampoo and a nice scalp massage, and they're all like, relaxed. Like you could feel the relaxation, you know? And then the music's playing in the background, you know? And then maybe you want to chat with them a little bit. Then they come back to your chair and you're like, okay, how many inches off do you want? And I'm going to give you a little layer and a little face frame. Yeah, okay, great. You know, then you start cutting away and everything starts looking so nice. And then you give them this bomb blowout and you're there drying their hair and it's all coming together. And then go like this and you're like, so do you love it? And they're like, oh, I love it. It feels so good. And they touch their hair and it's such a great feeling.
It's a feeling of love and contentment and peace and the connection with the other person.
Yes, exactly.
You
exactly.
So right now,
someone you know,
so what you're going with is that right now you'll
Hair love.
So
the power of the hair.
Right.
So if he says it'll be for the rest of your life, you're never going to say always or never, but right now at this point, the odds are you're probably going to stay with this.
Oh, yeah. Like, I'd love to have my own business one day, maybe, you know.
Working on the dead.
And working on the
Well,
dead.
you can do that.
My
They don't
daughters are-
complain, I hear.
They don't complain, not a word. They love everything you do. They love everything, and they stay still. They don't move.
Right.
Like when you're
Like
talking,
rigor mortis.
they're just listening, and they're not shaking their head like this, and you're not saying, keep your head straight, keep your head straight, keep your head straight. You know, it's great. So maybe someday we'll do that.
We had a neighbor that did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty neat, right?
Nice woman.
love it,
Very
yeah.
nice
No
woman.
Zoom, no Zoom.
No
I was
Zoom,
wondering,
no
do you-
robot, no
Jane.
Zoom.
I'm going to retire for the night.
Do I
It's
do
been a
beards?
pleasure.
You do
Good
It's been a
night,
pleasure,
folks.
Peter.
Want me to shave it?
You want a ride?
So I
Coach?
guess-
No,
I like
Actually,
this beard.
I have a car
learned
with me,
how to
yeah.
shave
Yeah, my
it straight.
wife left me
Razor-
the car.
razor.
Aw.
All right.
Hey, good night, folks.
Good night, Peter.
Good night.
Still got Judy on. Still got Carol
Are
and
you
Jim.
walking, Pete? Because I can take you home.
No, Pete.
Yeah,
Pete
oh,
likes to
yeah,
walk.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought you walked.
Good night now. I was
Pete
going
loves to walk.
The bank
It's a
Yeah,
couple
that's
of blocks
why
away.
we
It's good to move
We're
the food
neighbors,
around.
basically.
The bank gave him a loan.
Yeah. I put a new squirrel on the rotor wheel.
All right, so Judy, if you want, get in front of the mic now.
I'd like to tell
All
you
right,
one
I get you.
thing, though.
Be careful going home, Pete.
Besides the fact that Judy does trim hair.
Yeah, she does.
I recently posted on Facebook for people to write letters to Biden and Putin to, you know, against the war. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So this is madness. And so I had to sit down and say, okay, I asked everybody else to do it. I have to sit down and write a letter, right? Took me all day. Not very
That's
good.
well, it's not easy to formulate something and know
Right.
facts and get everything right.
Exactly. It took me a long time. I had to think, and I still have to make some progress.
That's why I said in the beginning, you're the author of The Power of the Love.
It's a process, yeah. So,
Well, right there is love. She's trying to help somebody else.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
Carolyn.
Another country. Yeah.
Power of love.
You know, I may
James,
not-
take my
I may
phone
not
and take
have
a
truck.
photo.
I may not be able to block the bridge from, Russia to the Ukraine or whatever, but I can write a letter, at least.
You're
And,
good at that.
so in it, I just want to mention, I quoted this book that I came across. Someone had given me this book in 1996. And it's called The Paradigm.
I thought she was going to say the power of love.
Paradigm. Well, it has something to do with that, but it's more about truth. The Paradigm Conspiracy, written by Denise Breton and Christopher Largent.
Yeah.
And it's the subtitle is how our systems of government, education, religion, and community, I think it is, violate our human potential. And it focuses on the great grandfather of peace, known as the Ganawida, who was a Huron native in the 1500s, and he developed, with the help of others, this plan to bring peace to the 6 tribes of the Iroquois of the Northeast natives, which became the Iroquois Peace Treaty, which you may remember from school, to stop this bloodshed that they were having for 500 years. They were at war with each other for 500 years, and they eventually realized, basically, that the white man was going to wipe them out. Why were they wiping out each other? So they came to this peace treaty, and his premise was the 12 cycles of peace. And it was all about truth. The 12 cycles of truth. It was all about truth, living truth, walking truth, everything about truth, understanding really what the truth was. This is much more of a philosophy matter than a more spiritual or emotional love matter. But I mention it because I'm writing to the presidents about this. I really think it was a pivotal book for me to read, and I think it's initially it's published by Hazelden, which publishes a lot of information on addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And these authors were saying, really, we're addicted to war, and
Oh, we are,
and
for
not
sure.
to peace, and we really need to work on peace. And how do we do that? So we need to change our structures, and they outline the way to do that. Walking in truth. Imagine if nobody lied, if everyone was very truthful. The reason why I love hearing Pete speak is he knows how to synthesize what he's talking about, for me anyway.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
directly and very succinctly. It's a
Thunder.
gift to be able to do that.
Yeah.
He's an orator, really.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I wanted to mention that, if anyone's interested in.
That's very interesting.
the
But I
the
think
Paradigm Conspiracy.
power, I think, is more what really pushes the war. Everybody wants to be powerful. Everyone wants
Power,
to flex
money.
their muscles.
Right.
Every one of these leaders of these countries, they talk about globalization, and I feel that every one of these leaders wants to be the one in power. Little do they know, the other guy is thinking the same thing. Our president thinks he's going to be the most powerful. The Chinese, they think that president thinks he's going to be the most powerful.
I don't know why it's
And
gotta be the most
Russia
powerful
thinks
guy.
the same.
It's true.
Yeah, but it's the
Irresponsible.
power and the money. But they don't care about the people.
No,
They
no,
only care
has
about
nothing
them
to do
being
with-
in power.
Right.
And them being in controlling the
olig-
world.
The oligarchs
Really.
are collective society.
Mm-hmm.
Like you heard of globalists.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what these are. And
Yes,
it's been
they
around
are.
for, I don't know, I guess, a very long time. With communications
So
mainly.
the only time.
Just recently, I would say recently
The only
from.
time you really have to worry about them is when they start getting fascist and massively killing you, supposedly. When they leave you alone and you're off to your own consensus, which is.
Well,
probably
it's
where
coming
we're
to the
going with all
point,
this.
well, the point I think we're coming to is that they want to tell everyone what to do. It's do what
Exactly.
I say.
Yes.
I mean, you'll see it even in societies as a whole. Like if you're having a conversation with someone and you don't agree with them, they can't talk to you. Oh, I can't have this conversation.
Right.
Well, why not? We can't agree to disagree.
Right.
I'm good
Not
with it.
anymore.
I'll talk to you. I'm mature enough to say,
That's
you
what
know.
COS, what I
I may not like you,
volunteer
but I
for.
love you.
Ah.
COS is
The power of love.
having the power instead of the legislature, Congress.
I told you to enjoy this,
Right.
Carolyn.
On us.
Right. Well, what they don't,
And
what they
that's
fail to
what I
realize is
email you.
we pay them to work for us. They think that we work for them, and that's not the way it is.
I know.
You know, our tax
straighten
dollars
that
might be
out.
paying them, but we don't work for them. They work for us, and we start having to let them know. And hopefully, in this election coming up, we're going to let them know. These old people need to get out. You know, and I don't care what side
Well,
you're
term
on.
limits have to be there.
Yeah, Nancy
And
Pelosi should not be
spending.
84 years old and still be sitting as the House Speaker. No way. We need to get rid of her.
When,
What was he got, $30
Nancy
million?
aside,
Yeah,
though,
yeah.
I have to say something though. When you have a longevity in the job, you have a lot of experience. Granted, you may not have all the new ideas, but you have a lot of wisdom that goes along with that experience. So I wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater, or in this case, the elderly out
Well,
with the bathwater.
I agree
do
with that,
agree.
but
I do agree that the system may have to change so that new blood is taught just as well as what the old
But-
blood has to
But what the
offer.
old blood is going to teach is what they want them to learn, and that's take the money and run. Take
You
the
look
money
at
for
the
yourself. She's a
look at the-
gazillionaire.
Look
What
at
is she doing
Look at
still
the
working?
definition of politics, and it says exactly what's happened. That's what politics is. So if you want it, you gotta play the game.
Well, we really have to
I hate
change.
to say it, but look at the definition, it's right there. Nothing, they're right in your face all the time, and that's what it is.
Well,
You can
it's
stomach it.
it's very sad that they are not working for the people anymore, and that they're working for themselves. And you know, the
Some
media,
are,
I
some
have to blame the media also, because
Always.
they're definitely not working for the people. They're so corrupt and in the pockets of all these politicians. I mean, to hide things. If any, I don't care
Well, I
what
like
side you're on, if somebody is doing something wrong, you need to let the people know, because this is just as bad as the countries that are
What
communist.
I'd like to talk about in the COVID, I hate to bring it up, but in the COVID situation, you really cannot travel unless you're giving somebody a swab of your DNA or some of your blood. You can't travel in the world anymore. without
Right.
that.
Well, for
My
now,
girlfriend in
for now,
California tells me that she's gonna pull out her vaccine card
which is ridiculous.
at least 3 times a week
Which is
wherever she
ridiculous.
goes.
They're coming over the border freely, not with any
I know.
vaccine of
With
anything.
drugs
And what happened to HIPAA? What happened to HIPAA? HIPAA went right out the window. What happened to HIPAA? That was supposed to have a
Doesn't
privacy.
exist.
Now all of a
Doesn't
sudden it
exist.
doesn't exist. But you don't have to pull out your ID to vote. You don't have to pull out your ID for all these other things. But yet for COVID, and this too shall pass. Once we go to war, and I'm sure war will be coming, and my fear is
I hope
a
not.
civil war and a world war at the same time, and you know, because it's brewing, and you know, just things are gonna happen. Things are gonna happen. Yeah.
But let's remember that the enemy is not the conservative or the liberal or any of the, it's really the power structure. Let's
Yes,
remember
it's
that.
the well, to me, it's the
Mhm.
politicians.
Without love.
Jim has been, God bless him, he's been getting involved in politics for a little bit, and he has been on this topic of the Convention of State, which
I
is
mean,
a
two
really,
societies,
it's a really big deal,
Convention
actually,
of
because
State, which you
if-
should look into.
What is
if
it?
they get
What- you have
enough
to.
states to.
I'm gonna email you. You can
Okay.
email
If they
me.
get,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
look it up, you
Yeah.
have to look it up and read about it, but
I'll send you
if they get
videos.
enough states to sign on to have a convention of states, it means that the whole, is it just the Bill of Rights, or the whole Constitution is, the whole Constitution is
Article 5, that's what we're working on.
opened up.
And
So-
we're
So when
doing
you
it-
say opened up, you mean opened up for change,
Yes,
or
Right.
yes.
okay?
It's the states will have power, not the feds.
And what usually has happened in the past, states do have power. What has happened in the past is whatever the demands that are, the federal government will acquiesce to those demands because they don't want the Constitution to open up. Because once you open it up, they can say, the states can say, we don't want the federal government anymore. The federal government won't do that. So they usually acquiesce to what they want, so they better have what they want, solidified. And
That's interesting.
Well,
Yeah, I'd like to hear more about that.
Because they have half the states
I want
already.
more people to
Wow.
be involved in
Yeah,
this.
wow is
And there
right.
are districts around. We're in the Northeast District. All right?
Okay, okay.
And I'm District 26. But you have them down here. Woodbridge has one. And I'm sure all down South
I'll have to look
Jersey
into
will.
that, yeah.
Interesting.
And I can find you people that will be
And I'm sure the richer states will be the last ones to sign on.
Tom's
Oh, I'm
River.
sure,
Wow.
I'm sure.
Tom's River.
Well, just before
Right.
Tom's River, I'm in Howell. Howell.
Are there any big states that have signed on, like California or Illinois or?
Oh, all the states are involved in this.
I know, but which ones have ratified this already?
Well, the 17.
Yeah.
You want me to call them off?
No, I'm just saying, are there any big,
You know where they are?
Big
They're
states,
largely from the
Texas.
middle of the country east.
mid to east?
Yes,
Interesting.
Okay,
that's where it is.
So we are hitting midnight.
that's interesting.
Yes, it's
Oh,
close to
wow,
midnight,
is it?
and I
Yeah, it's
ready.
11:55.
Wow, wow.
Blow out
This
of
is a
this
great
one.
round
Yeah, this is
table
great,
here.
guys.
love
I
it.
think next time.
We should have told your mother to come and join us.
Well, we gotta do this every time.
Bernie.
All right.
Next time, I think.
Did she sit down that long?
Bernadette, you should.
Next time-
We'll make her sit down that long.
Next
We'll
time.
talk about politics, and that'll make her sit down.
Next time your daughter's here, we should have a debate between you and her and just talk about
Oh, I
whatever you guys
can't.
want to
My
talk
daughter's
about.
too smart for me. I can't. Do
Well, I
it.
think I want to see that on my show.
She talks to me, and I'm like, oh, okay.
We're gonna
She
have
keeps
it.
me posted on what's going on, honestly.
All right, guys. I'm signing off. James, see you
I'm
guys
telling
next
you,
time.
that's where I get my news sources from. My news source is Allison Liz.
Okay.
Keep the faith, babe.
Power of love,
All
Carol.
right, thank you.
Thank you,
Very good.
thank you, thank you.
Next time, we're gonna do something again.
That was fun. See, Carolyn, wasn't that good?
Yeah,
I'm
Carolyn,
glad you
yeah.
joined us, Carolyn.